Okay, we're live from Take Break Action and Tempestry, and today I have the honor of announce someone that I admire a lot. This guy pretty much has made all our friendship happen, all of our childhood happen, all the cartoons that we have seen in Cartoon Network, and who has delighted us with a lot of entertainment. He is the guy responsible to this. So, big welcome for Fred Seibert.
Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
Awesome, Fred. So, the first I would like to ask you a little bit about the history for the people who don't know about the details about your life. Like, why did you get started into animation, and how was the path for you until this point?
Well, the truth is, it wasn't a straight path at all. I watched cartoons when I was a child, and when I was 12 years old, the Beatles came to America and wiped cartoons out of my life for many, many years. Like a lot of other people my age, I started a rock band and thought that my life was going to be in music. And in fact, I started my professional career first working in radio in college, then in commercial radio, and really producing records of various sorts, mainly jazz records. And through one thing or another, I found myself as the first employee at MTV, which was the company that also owned Nickelodeon. So without really thinking about it, I not only worked in the rock and roll business, but I started working in kids television. And one thing led to another, and I was 40 years old, having worked in advertising, promotion, branding, all sorts of things in the American cable TV business, when out of the blue one day a friend at Ted Turner's company mentioned to me that they had bought the famous Hanna-Barbera studios and they were looking for somebody to run it, and he asked me if I wanted to run it. And with about as much thought and time as we're going through in this interview now, I said, sure, why not? So I had an advertising agency that had 40 employees. I had a partner. I had to close my advertising agency. I had to help find work for many of my employees. I had to pack up my house and move from New York to Los Angeles and walk into a studio of 250 people who were wondering who I was, and I was wondering who they were. And the plain truth of the matter is I had no idea what I was doing. And it seemed to all work out okay in the end.
Pretty much like any path in entrepreneurship, you just go and grab the opportunities while they happen, even if you're not ready to do it.
Exactly. Well, when I got my first offer to be in the television business, I was in radio and I worked in music. And this guy called me up and said, oh, do you want to work for us in cable TV? And I said, well, I watch TV, but I don't make it, and I don't know that I want to make it. And so, as you say, every big change that's come along in my life has been a complete, quick left turn that I didn't expect to make. It's the same thing that got me into the internet. And all in all, it's worked out very, very well for me. I've had an amazing life.
Awesome. And what has been the biggest obstacles that you have faced doing animation productions?
Well, I guess realistically, like anything in the world, the biggest obstacles are the ones that I see in the mirror. They're more about myself than they are for any sort of external obstacles. The truth is, everybody who gets into the animation business is confronted with all of the same circumstances, all of the same people, all of the same, money issues or distribution issues. Everybody has exactly the same things. So a lot of it has to do with looking inside yourself, and the distance you can go probably is more determined by your motivation and ambition to go a certain distance than it is than anything else. And so for me, the biggest issue when I started is that I didn't really watch cartoons. I didn't really know anything about the process. I knew the technical processes of animation, but I didn't really know anything about character and story. I didn't know anything about the professional systems of how do you get a show made, how do you pay for it, how do you convince people to see it. So a lot of it was organized around my confidence or lack of confidence at any given moment that I could figure out the answers to the problems that we had in front of us.
Awesome. Like, I really understand what you say because right now I came from a tip from Bulgaria, and we have like this summit of a lot of entrepreneurs, and there were some guys there who were really killing it. And I thought like I was dreaming big for me. Like everybody was telling me, no, you're just dreaming too big. And then I met these guys, and it's like, oh no, I was dreaming really low. Like there is so much more that can be done, and
Yeah.
we cannot grab it in our minds at the moment until you see it, and it's like, oh, so that's how it is.
Well, I think that the plain truth of the matter is that there are no dreams that are too big, and I certainly feel that. I'm lucky. I'm an American, but I'm born of a European mother and an American father, and I came to life in this culture. And luckily, in the culture that I live in, the only thing that limits you is, in fact, your own personal dreams and how high you think you can fly. And the fact of the matter is while I haven't done everything that I dream of, I do think at this particular point in time, I'm already 63 years old, and I think that there's still infinite amount of climbing that I can do.
Yeah, like, you get to the top of the mountain that you saw, and then you see in the horizon like another huge mountain. It's like
There's always another mountain, that's for sure.
And in your experience, what does like an animation project successful? Like I've seen many projects like different animations succeed, but how will be like the special ingredients? I think authenticity will be one of them, but what will be the ingredients for the animation to succeed?
Well, at the very core level, it's the same for any film, whether it's animated or live action, and whether it's for children or it's for adults. It basically comes down to great characters and great stories, right? So from my perspective, I don't have a lot of training in script reading and in storyboard reading. I certainly am not an artist. I don't know how to draw. I know what I like, but the truth is that ultimately what I end up looking for is there a character that I can fall in love with. So from an external standpoint, looking at the idea itself, I'm less interested in the idea than I'm in the characters. And then from an internal standpoint, from a practical standpoint, I look at the creator and say to myself, could I be working every single day with this creator? Is there something that is inspiring about this person that makes us feel that not only that the film that's in front of us that we're looking at, but what we hope could be hundreds of films in the future are ones that we think that this person can just continue to add to and bring new richness to the characters and to those stories. And I think in every case, look, over the years, we've made over 300 short films. And almost every series that we have done, and even the movies that we have started to work on, somehow or other come from these short films. And those are the ones that have great characters, great stories, but also a fantastic creator.
Awesome. And in the present right now, because in the business world, in the entrepreneurship world, like everything keeps changing, like really, especially now, everything is changing really fast. What will be the best ways to fund an animation project? Like, let's say that there is this small team of animators who doesn't have too much, what would be the best way for them to get funded for the project?
Well, to be honest with you, I don't think about funding until the very end. I first think about what's the best way to make a project that you love, right? And once you've made that project you love, the great thing about the world that we're in today is that it is instantly shareable with the world. By just one email address on YouTube, you have a potential audience of 1 billion people to see the work that you have. And if you've put your work out there and people have fallen in love with it, then the prospect of getting it funded becomes easier, because you can walk around to the various organizations that might want to support you and show them that an audience already likes your project. That's the experience we went through with Adventure Time. We created the first short in 2006, and we had a relationship with Nickelodeon where they had the right to make Adventure Time into a series. And we went back to them over and over again, I think 5 times in total over about 2 years, giving them the opportunity to make Adventure Time. And for whatever set of reasons, they didn't see it for them at that point. But simultaneously, they had given us permission to put it on the internet for a short period of time. And every time we walked into their offices, another few 100,000 people had fallen in love with Adventure Time.
No.
By the time they said no the final time, we were able to bring it down the street to Cartoon Network, and we walked in with, I think, over 5 million people already loving the original Adventure Time short. And even Cartoon Network wasn't all that sure. But every time we went back, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands more people had liked the short. So even though they were a little bit scared of it, because it certainly was different than anything else that was out there, they couldn't deny the fact that not only was the audience falling in love with it, but the audience that fell in love with it was growing each time out. Well, every single filmmaker in the world that has an internet connection has that opportunity today. The other thing that I look at is I think that sometimes people try to be a little bit too ambitious, and they want to run before they walk, and they want to walk before they crawl. Yeah. I tell all the people here, I started my career on the network side of the business, not on the production side. And I was responsible for identifying and branding, first MTV, then Nickelodeon, then VH1 and Comedy Central and a whole bunch of channels. And in the first 10 years that I was in the television business, I made almost 1,000 10-second animated pieces to identify the various channels that I worked with. When I say I didn't animate them. I can't animate. I have no talent whatsoever. But I worked with I worked with animators across the world to develop these, little 10-second stories. And each one of those 10-second stories had a beginning, middle, and end. And that was my film school, because I certainly never I didn't even graduate from college. So making those 1,000 films over a 10-year period, so an average of about 100 every year, I got the opportunity to experiment, to meet new filmmakers, to meet new talented people, to help them help educate me. Maybe I helped educate them about a couple of things, but I got a lot of practice before I had to work on my first cartoon. And so I think that for young filmmakers starting out, starting small, getting really good at small, introducing that stuff to an audience that is sitting there. I mean, the audience on the internet is waiting for people to give them things, right? We all log in every morning, and we go to our few favorite places, and what do we go for? We go like, what do you have to show me today? Right? So whether that's your Tumblr account, or whether that's YouTube, or whether that's your Facebook or your Twitter, we're all waiting for someone to share something with us. And if you're an aspiring filmmaker, or by the way, photographer or writer or illustrator, it doesn't really matter what it is that you do, there is an audience of billions of people out there that are just waiting for you. And to me, I look at that and look at whether what we've created is something people are interested in, rather than looking for the funding. To me, the funding, it doesn't quite take care of itself. Yeah. But if you start with something that people love, the funding becomes a lot easier.
Awesome. And talking about the things that I love, like, what would be the projects that you have done that you love the most?
Oh, please, Rodrigo. I love them all.
I can imagine that.
I mean, every one of these filmmakers that we have worked with, and we've worked with hundreds over the years, they really put their sweat, blood, and tears into every film that they make. And, you know, while I might have some that I like a little bit more than others, the plain truth of the matter is I'm in complete awe and admiration of every one of those filmmakers who every time they make something, they're putting everything on the line. And they're putting it out there in the world and hoping that people don't make fun of them. And for me, the great thing in what I'm able to do is I'm actually looking across outside of my work area, and I'm seeing a filmmaker that I started working with 30 years ago who's making some films for us right now for our new channel, Fredbot. And at the same time, I know that tonight when I go over to the School of Visual Arts, I'm going to meet a whole bunch of new filmmakers who are still students, who I'm meeting for the very first time. And if I'm lucky, I'm going to find somebody there that I'm going to work with for years to come. And so this notion, my favorite is always the filmmaker that we're working with today and the filmmaker we're going to work with tomorrow. Those are always the favorites because you just never know you never know what's around the corner. And that's a really exciting place to be in.
Read the history of Mercedes-Benz, that when he was like building the motor, he had like this huge post that said the best or nothing. And every time he did something, he was like, is this the best? Because if it is not, I'm not going to do it. So right now I think that's what you're doing right now. Like, if it is not the best, you are not doing it.
Well, you know, every creator has their own standards as to what's important to them. And, you know, one of the great things about having coming up in the rock and roll and pop era like I came up with is that, you know, the standards of the Sex Pistols were completely different than the standards of the Eagles. You know, and the standards of Arcade Fire are completely different than the standards of Beyonce. And one of their standards or the others is not better or worse. They're really personal. And the truth is, for a creative person, if they live up to their own standards and they make a piece of work that satisfies what they were hoping to satisfy, that's all you can ask from a creative person. And as an audience member, and in the end, I look at my job to represent the audience, right? I'm there, somebody's showing me their work, and I'm like the person out in a seat, you know, and somebody's up on stage and I'm clapping. And so ultimately, I try not to judge from a purely objective standard. It's a really subjective standard. But filmmakers accomplish what they're looking for. And if they do, then I can be happy with them and be a fan of theirs and try and help them get their work out there in the world.
Awesome. And talking about new animators, like the young people that you see that they are committing a lot, and what should they be focusing on, but they are not doing it. What are those two things that you see?
Again, I think that the biggest reason we say no to a filmmaker is very rarely how they've designed their film or how they've animated their film. Ultimately, it's because we don't fall in love with characters. People seem to be often much more focused on the concept of the film and not enough on the characters that are in it. And I would say over 90% of the things that we say no to, it's because we really just don't feel, we don't fall in love with those characters. I think that's sort of my simplest way to put it.
I see. Awesome. So the things that I should be focusing on is like creating a character that everybody should love. Like you see, like Flynn for Adventure Time. When I saw the first episode, it was like, oh, I got to keep seeing this thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Flynn are amazing.
He was really special because while he aspired to be a hero, he was basically every person, right? And so whether you were a boy or a girl, a man or a woman, you could recognize yourself in Finn and sort of recognize his hopes and dreams for himself, and both the fun that he wanted to have and the dangers that he maybe faced while he was having fun in that process.
Awesome. And right now, is there any project that you have been not able to do, but you want to take it in the future? Or?
Well, you know, we're in a really lucky position right now where we started our own channels on YouTube a few years ago, Cartoon Hangover, Channel Frederator. Am I frozen on you? I want to make sure that I haven't frozen.
Yes. No, it's okay.
So we started our own channels, and we started starting to fund those channels. And the plain truth of the matter is every time we have a project that we want to try out, we have a place to try it out. We can figure out a way to get it made. Just in the last, 18 months, we've made probably 12 short films, one of which you know really well, being Puppycat, but also shows like Rocket Dog, like My New Electrical Morals, like Manly. Every one of those projects is projects we really wanted to do with filmmakers we were happy to work with. And we've just lined up, we're starting a new project of another dozen short films. So the truth of the matter is that when we find something we want to make, we make it, and we see what happens from there. The project that's been longest gestating at our studio, that we've been working on the longest, is a feature film of Samurai Jack with Genndy Tartakovsky.
I want to see that.
Right, we do too. We've actually been working on it now for about 10 years. And as you know, getting feature films off the ground can be a very treacherous process. Yes. They're very expensive, and they're very difficult to get funded and launched. But Genndy made the very first series that I produced, the very first animated series, Dexter's Laboratory.
Yeah.
We made it, in 1990. I think we made the first short in 1993 or 1994. So I have over a 20-year relationship with him. And because of that, I have that complete, crazy, optimistic faith that we're going to get the Samurai Jack project made. And, if you're a fan of the original series, it's going to be a fantastic film.
Oh, yes, I want to see it, so please do it. I want to see that happen. And
well, please find some of your richest friends and have them call up, and then we'll make it right away.
We'll do. And there was this incubator that it was called What a Cartoon.
Yes.
Back then in the time. Have you considered of doing something like that in the present?
We've never stopped doing that, Rodrigo. We've done What a Cartoon, then we did Oh Yeah Cartoons, then we did Random Cartoons. Oh Yeah Cartoons is where the Fairly Oddparents came from.
Oh, I
My
see.
Life as a Teenage Robot, Chalk Zone. Then we did random cartoons where Fanboy and Chum Chum came from, and Adventure Time. Then we did a set called Too Cool Cartoons for our cartoon Hangover. That's where Bee and Puppycat came from, and the others that I mentioned. And we're just starting a new incubator in partnership with Sony Pictures called Go Cartoons. So we've done this actually 5 times over the last 20 years. And believe me, I'm never going to stop. Every time we're done, we're just going to start a new incubator.
Awesome. Thanks for that. I'm pretty sure that many people will be really happy to hear that right now.
Fantastic. Well, just keep your eyes open. Probably sometime toward the end of 2015, the first shorts coming out of the Go Cartoons incubator will be up. And I believe we're in production right now for the last shorts that are going to be in the Too Cool Cartoons incubator. So there's sort of a constant process of us going and finding new young filmmakers and figuring out a way to work with them.
Awesome. And Bee and Puppycat, I want to take that up. What did you decide to do it like a Kickstarter campaign? I'm pretty sure that at your position you could have done it happen. So what made you take the decision to do it through Kickstarter?
Okay, so you would think so, but here's the truth, is that we made the Bee and Puppycat short. We had a budget for it here, but we didn't have a budget for a series. You know, raising $1 million is not easy for anybody, even people like us who have been around for a while. $1 million isn't a lot of money until I ask you for it, and then it's a lot of money. And when we got to Bee and Puppycat, we realized a couple of things. One is, obviously, it was very special, and Natasha Allegri is a completely unique creator who had imagined this amazing world and these amazing set of characters. But the conventional wisdom of the television and film business is that it doesn't particularly love female heroes or leads in a film, and it really doesn't like cartoons that are made for an older female audience. So we realized that, number one, we probably wouldn't have too much of a welcome mat out from the traditional networks and studios. Number two, Natasha is a completely unique filmmaker who has a process that is not that of a trained animated filmmaker. She actually trained as a comic book artist, and that shoving her into a network system or a feature film system was not going to be a great mix. And so we felt confident that if we could keep Natasha in our studio and sort of nurture that process along, that not only would we get films that were really special, but that we would attract an audience that the rest of the media market really was ignoring. So, but like I said, our bank account was empty, and so we felt that the best thing to do was go out to the audience that had already told us how much they liked the picture. Tell them the straight story. If you went and looked at the Kickstarter video right now, I think the story I just told you is very parallel to what we really did, like, you know, a year and a half ago. And I think people really recognized that we were trying to do something different and stepped up and helped us finance it. It's not necessarily going to help us finance a second season. I don't think we're going to go to Kickstarter for a second season. I'm not sure that that's fair to the audience. But at that point, we hopefully will have enough of a track record that we can find another partner to get together with to make more seasons of the show.
I think it's like a kind of a comfort zone for the TV networks and all that they do not want to explore too much. I think they should have, like, for example, you told me Adventure Time was really different, and sure, it is really different from anything we have seen until now, but I think that's why everybody loves it, because it was not the same.
Sure, but to be fair, my initial reaction was not a positive reaction on Adventure Time either. You know, when you're confronted with something that's different than you're used to, your instinct is to go backwards, not to go forwards. Right? Going forwards can sometimes be scary because you don't know what's coming. Luckily, I have colleagues that I've worked with for many years who I trust a lot, and they were more adventurous than I was at that particular minute in time. Luckily, all I had to do was meet Penn Ward, and in 10 minutes knew that I wanted to do films with him. And I was putting my trust in him rather than him having to put his trust in me, though luckily he put his trust in us also.
Awesome. So, how has been like the experience with Kickstarter, like getting all these funds to do it, the production about the V and Puppycat? How has been whole experience for you?
So the experience at Kickstarter was fantastic. Interestingly, I happen to know the founders of Kickstarter, and I met them even before they had launched Kickstarter, so we had a long relationship, and those people have been very kind to us and really helpful. It was nice to get this funding out of the audience, but to be honest with you, I was more excited about the fact that 18,000 people stepped up and helped us than exactly the amount of money that they gave. Because now we knew that we had 18,000 people in our marketing department who could help us get the word out to the whole world. And sure enough, that's what happened. When we launched the Bee and Puppycat series, the first episode got an audience twice as fast as the original pilot. And I think a lot of that had to do with those 18,000 people telling all of their friends about this project that they were lucky enough to be in on the ground floor of. And I think every one of those people shared it with, you know, dozens of friends that they had, which made it accepted by the world. And ultimately, it now is one of the most successful scripted series in the history of YouTube. Pardon me.
That's it. But yeah, I think it's like this is an amazing platform to do exactly what you told us. Like, just create something that people will love, and people in the internet will pretty much spread the love all over the place.
Yeah, well, that's the great, you know, here's the truth. For every one of us, whenever we fall in love with something, the first thing we want to do is share it with the people that we love. Right? So whether that's our best friends or our family or the people we go to school with or people we went to school with years ago, you know, when I hear a new song or I get a film that I really like, the first thing, I have a few people that the first thing I do is drop an email, look, you have to pay attention to this. And that's the exact same thing that happened among all my friends that day in February of 1964 when the Beatles were on television in America. And the next morning at school, every one of us was frozen. We didn't pay attention to anything other than those few minutes that had happened on television the day before. And that happens with my niece now when she sees One Direction or a new Taylor Swift record comes out, right? It's always the same story over and over again. As human beings, we want to share the things that are meaningful to us. And God bless the internet, it has made it so much easier for us to be able to do that. Look at us, we're sharing right now over things that we like together. Who would have expected, it wasn't that long ago that this relationship that you and I are starting to build today couldn't have happened.
Yeah, definitely. And you know, I come from a country that is called El Salvador, that is like a really, really tiny, and who has a lot of economic problems. And because of that, obviously there are a lot of parents. Like, we had an event where there were a lot of entrepreneurs talking, and if you saw like all the entrepreneurs talking, they all say like, do not listen to your parents, especially for the creators,
Right.
for the animators, for the designers, because here is like, oh, art won't give you food, art won't get you a living. And in the internet, it's like, no, I have friends who are doing animations here from people in Japan, in the UK, in Australia, in all over the world. They are earning so much more than they were paid here. And it's possible, and it's really possible, but
It's
they
possible.
do not believe
It's
it.
magic.
Yes, definitely. Because before, it was impossible. Like, my parents didn't have these opportunities. Even Google Hangouts didn't exist like 2 years ago.
It's unbelievable, isn't it? It's. I mean, I'm a lot older than you, but I still marvel every single day as to what's possible today that wasn't possible yesterday. And the truth is, what's possible tomorrow will be more amazing than what's possible today. It's both.
And easier.
Sorry?
And easier to.
Yeah, it just keeps going. It's fantastic.
That's what I keep trying. Like, what will be your message? Well, for all these people here and in all over the world, because there are a lot of people out there who have an amazing talent. I have met really amazing talents in my life, and when I talk to them, it's like they do not believe in their work. They do not believe that they can make it happen in real life, and it's like, no. I mean, I know that real life can be hard, but at the same time, it can be really amazing, like way beyond our dreams.
Well, you
So,
know,
what would be your advice to them?
we run an animation network now on YouTube called the channel Frederator Network. And the thing that's most amazing to me is two of our most successful channels are from solo animators. One of them who lives in London, and one of them who lives in Melbourne, Australia. They make these cartoons by themselves, and every month, millions of people look at the work that they do. You know, the Sam Green in Australia makes all of these films that he makes in his bedroom. Simon Tofield in London, who makes Simon's Cat, he made the first Simon's Cat as an experiment to teach himself how to use a particular animation technology. It didn't occur to him in a million years that millions of people around the world, whether it's in Russia or in El Salvador or in the United States or in Australia or the UK, would fall in love with his cat. Right? It's incredible, and the truth is, it's only going to become more incredible as time goes on, as these films start to make their way through Facebook, through Snapchat, through some technology we haven't invented yet. It makes it even easier for us to share with our friends.
Definitely. Right now we won a project here. Like, the government is starting to realize that the creative zone is not being exploited too much, so they are making like this contest that is called Pixels, the Pixels Award. So everybody can like try to compete, try to win an award, and we got funding to make like to start our own project that is called Tempus Trip. I'm going to send you the trailer later so you can see
I love
and
that.
give us your advice.
Well, you know,
It's just like
we're in the middle
Yes.
of putting together a partnership with an animation studio in Mexico City to start an all-Latino animation network to specialize in animations that are made in Central and South America. Because we know that the opportunity is there. We know that there are filmmakers across a part of the world that we personally aren't familiar with, but our partners in Mexico are familiar with. And we know that all that's going to do is open up more opportunity for more creative people.
Awesome. Yes, because in Latin America, I gotta tell you, there is a lot of talent here.
Of
And
course.
it's a shame that most people do not believe in themselves, and it's like, no, and I'm trying like, no, use the internet. Like, there are so many things that you can do there. Like, you can make it happen, and they do not believe me. It's crazy.
Well, you know, the most successful series that we have on Cartoon Hangover right now is from Chile. And it's from a small studio called Studio Marmota that we became friends with through our network. They made a little series, a comedy series about a dolphin. and we made an agreement with them a few months ago that we would translate their cartoons into English and share them with an English-speaking audience. And I have to look right now, but I think that our episode there, it's brand new. It's just about 2 weeks old in English. And each of the episodes so far has gotten over 100,000 views of a tiny little studio from Chile who made their own work. A few thousand people saw it. And, you know, together we've been able to expand it to a much larger audience across the world. And I know that what that's going to do is now introduce the Spanish-speaking audience to their original cartoon made in their native language and expose it to a whole new audience. To me, that's what the magic of the modern world that you're growing up in and that your friends are creating in. I'm just glad that I'm old enough that I almost missed it, but I'm young enough that I'm still in it, if you know what I mean.
Definitely.
Hey, you know, Rodrigo, unfortunately I'm out of time. I do have to run. Okay.
Thanks a lot for your time.
I love being a part of your series. I'm really honored and flattered that you reached out to us. And hopefully this will just be the beginning, and that we'll be talking again soon.
Absolutely, man. Thanks a lot for your time.
Thank you.
It was awesome to have you here.
Thank you so much. Okay, take care. Okay, bye-bye.
Take care, you too.